So, Daredevil Born Again, episode 6 of season 2 is in the bag, and yeah, I think it's another good episode. Not to give you a window into my process too much, but I watched these episodes twice. First time I watched it, I thought it was, it's pretty good. And then the second time I watched it, actually, I thought there's quite a lot going on in this episode. It's quite a good, meaty episode. And, there's a lot going on if you're a fan of a lot of these characters. Side note, I think I've got to address some of the criticism the show's getting. I know I've done this a couple of times already in my thoughts, my reviews for the show. A lot of the complaints regarding the political stuff, I'm really not going to touch, because I think, some of the criticism is fair. I think it is sort of a window to whatever I know about modern day American politics, which I'm not, again, going to go into nor have an opinion on. But I think you can't help but watch this show and think, okay, there is some sort of parallels going on to modern day things you see on the news. That's as much as I'll go into that. But some of the criticism as well, I saw some of the bigger name critics of the show, Nerdroid, Critical Drinkers, whatever else. You Google Daredevil Born Again reviews and you'll see some of these come up. Such as Kingpin showing emotion after his wife dies as a negative. And you think, okay, I really can't take you guys seriously if that's the sort of level of nitpicky, I don't like this about the show. It just feels like they're trying to find anything they can to sort of throw mud at the show for, and that's unobjective, because in what world is a husband not going to mourn the death of their wife? You know what I mean? It's a ridiculous criticism. I saw that and I thought, well, that's a good. I think you've jumped the shark immediately. But there you go. My mini rant is over. Let's get into episode 6. So we are dealing with the ramifications or the after events of Vanessa's death. She did pop her clogs, as we say in Britain, in episode 5, at the very end of episode 5. And we are now dealing with the ramifications. And as much as we thought Kingpin would lose his mind, he's actually grieving through most of this episode. He is in mourning. He is coming to terms with the loss of Vanessa. I mean, we are seeing, very first scene we see, Kingpin is obviously by the bedside of Vanessa while she has just passed away. Hours before this, and she's grieving. The surgeon or doctor comes in, and I've got to be honest, when he came into episode 5, I thought, I don't think you're long for this world, mate. And then he opened his mouth and said some, very nice, I guess, to a certain extent, but also very wishy-washy. Not the kind of thing I would want to hear at that time either. I get his heart was in the right place, but as soon as he came on screen, I thought, you're a little bit annoying, and I'm not going to be surprised if Kingpin ends you. Anyway, this is exactly what transpires, because as soon as he comes in, there's a very holistic, very nice meaning prayer, I think, but also some sort of advice to Wilson Fisk, and then he motions Wilson for a hug, and you think, oh, you fool. And so, yeah, obviously what happens is Kingpin just crushes the guy's spine, as I was really hoping he would do. I've got to be honest. And he does, he follows suit, and I thought that was really great. We then move on with the opening credits, dun, 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 dun. We then have the funeral of Vanessa's funeral. All the key characters are there from the Fisk administration. We've got Heather there sitting alongside Buck, who I'm not sure whether they are together or they are just friends. I assumed they'd already gotten together, but I'm not sure they have actually. I think they're just close associates with some sort of attraction, because there's been no intimacy. We'll get to that later. But yeah, they're sitting together anyway at this funeral. We've got Daniel is there as well. So we've got Buck, Vanessa. We've got also most of his administration, vigilante task force members at the back, keeping security, obviously. And then we move on. We've Mr. Charles, Matthew Lillard, comes back into the show. He just pops up every other episode for a scene or two. In this one, he goes to the warehouse where Kingpin was storing his weapons, or his associates' weapons. And obviously we saw in episode 3 that Kingpin's already moved. Kingpin's vigilante task force have already moved the weapons to another location. and Mr. Charles sort of, goes a bit ape. We see, I think a couple of scenes later on, he phones Wilson to ask what the hell's going on, where are my weapons, and Kingpin just hangs up on him. And so Mr. Charles is sort of lost his tether, shall we speak, and we'll move on from there. He actually, towards the end of the episode, does phone up the governor, who has, again, lost confidence in, well, she was losing confidence in Kingpin anyway, Wilson Fisk's campaign, due to the protests and due to all the anti-Fisk rhetoric that is going on around the city. And he's sort of leaning, this is Mr. Charles, leans on the governor to pull her support for Fisk. And this is what happens towards the end of the episode. That Kingpin is now lost. He's losing his grip on the city. He's now lost his sort of political, I guess, power. The support of Mr. Charles, which we didn't know how key that was, but clearly there's higher ups and key associates that have lent on the governor, who has now pulled her support for Kingpin. And we see what happens at the very end of the episode as to what that realizes. As I said, the protests are ramping up the pressure. They're sort of, they're camped outside the Fisk offices. They're sort of, bashing against the railings. And we see the anti-vigilante task force pushing them back. And that is going to come to a head towards the end of the episode as well. We see the return of Jessica Jones, and she has been, she was advertised for the show. I can't believe it's episode 6 before we see her entry, but it is a great scene. We see just some feet at the side of the house and a child playing with a toy. Anyway, soldiers or men with guns start coming towards the house, throw what is presumably a grenade through the window. The child starts playing with it. Meantime, the mother, which is Jessica Jones, goes outside, starts pummeling these guys, and it's shot really well from within the house. You just see these guys coming up against the wall, against the window, some blood stains around the window and stuff. And then she comes to the house, takes a grenade off the child before it blows up, says, "No, that's not a toy," clicks it off, and then we see the return of Jessica Jones. That then leads us to Punisher's hideout, where Karen and Matt are looking after Bullseye, or taking care of Bullseye. To which Karen, and for all Karen haters, you're gonna love this one, because she starts lecturing Matt about killing Bullseye. He deserves to die. Do it. Let me do it, even. And Matt is arguing the merits of preserving life, as is Daredevil's mantra. Says, "No, what's to separate us from Fisk?" She goes, "No, this will end if you dispense with people like Bullseye, like Fisk." And so the moral quandary, as we went into in a couple of episodes ago, about Matt Murdock, Daredevil, the moral superiority that he holds, but also he's wrestling with his violent nature combined with his, Christian values, I guess, to a certain extent. And so, Matt sort of washes her away. She says, she's ready to talk to you. We then see Daredevil reunite with Jessica Jones, where Kingpin's weapons storage warehouse is taking place. The Vigilante Task Force are guarding the weapons, and Matt and Jessica basically have a little chat, go into it. Then we see him storm the warehouse, dispense with the Vigilante Task Force members there. It's a really good fight scene. I love the choreography of the fights in this show, especially season 2. I think they're really good. And so there's a point where Jessica Jones kicks a bomb into a soldier's face, which I really enjoyed. It was really good. And so they blow up the warehouse, basically. So you think the weapons inside are destroyed. There is a reference to that watch, which I never really keyed in, so just how key that was, that Daredevil put into one of the box of weapons in episode 1, which has come up a couple of times now. He's keeping track of where these weapons are being stored through that watch, which I think is it's a really great detail they put in episode 1 that keeps coming back as a really good nod. So that's been blown up. We cut to the wake of Vanessa's funeral. Obviously Fisk is there, just sort of looking out the window mournfully. We have the governor talking to I can't remember her name, the assistant mayor, long-suffering assistant mayor, I can't remember her name. And we also see BB there talking to Daniel, and Buck intercepts Daniel, sort of has, a cheap quip towards BB, takes Daniel to one side, and Buck clearly knows that BB is very heavily suspect. I think he already knows she's the leak, but he's trying to get Daniel to coax her or give her up, sort of thing. Daniel's dealing with the ramifications of what they did in the episode 5, which is dispense with the body of the vice captain. And so he pressures Daniel about BB. He's like, I know she's the leak, or at least you think she's the leak. Why don't you plant a fake story to her, wait for her to reveal it or publish it as a, quote, journalist, and then we've got her. We've had her. You'll know she's the leak. You'll know she's the suspect. You'll know she's not really on your side, and therefore you'd have made a choice. Anyway, that happens. Later on, we see Daniel test BB in such a way. They're outside at one of the protests, and Daniel gives her a fake story saying, by the way, as a result of Vanessa's death, Fisk is going to not run for a second term, basically. And she's like, really? And she's like, yeah, for sure. So we then later on have BB going to Daniel's house for his birthday, because it's Daniel's birthday. Meets his mother, sort of, engages in sort of, light family fare. And I think she's warming to Daniel. His mother is I want to say some sort of psychologist or something, because she's dealing with some sort of I don't know what it was, but anyway, BB's indulging it and asks to use the bathroom. Goes up to use the bathroom, has the writes a text message or a tweet, I guess, maybe, to reveal what Daniel told her about Fisk not running for a second term. As a result of Daniel's mother and him, and being very charming and stuff, she decides not to post it. So she actually didn't post the fake news that he had dropped for her. Meanwhile, while she's going to the bathroom and not tweeting, Daniel finds the chip in her coat pocket that the friend of White Tiger had dropped or slipped her, which contains the key information about, or so the all the stories and all the leaked information regarding the from Daredevil and Karen. So he knows that she's, he slipped her it, so he finds out that he slipped her it, so she knows he's not on your side. Then she goes, later on when she's about to go, motions to sort of kiss him to a certain extent, and he pushes her away going, look, I found this chip in your pocket, what's going on here? I can't trust you, and I can't protect you either. And at that point, Buck is calling him, and he goes, I can't protect you from him. And BB sort of knows now she may be in, as we say, up shit's creek without a paddle. So we will wait to see what happens to that. I see some sort of showdown happening there between Daniel, Buck, BB, one of the three. We then cuts back to Buck himself with Heather in, I guess, the Fisk's bedroom. And she's looking through some old mementos, looking at a picture of Vanessa. And she's still traumatized by Muse. She's dealing with those emotions, those feelings. Buck comes in as his usual creepy way, and sort of says, are you okay? What's going on? And this is the point where I go, I thought they were already together, but I guess they weren't. I guess they're just sort of chummy, with some sort of attraction. Anyway, he can sort of read that she's traumatized to a certain extent. He says, what's going on? He asks her about Muse. She goes, what did he do to you? She tells him about the choking, tells him about the cutting. And she goes, well, he motions to her in a really weird, I did laugh when I saw this the first time, because I thought, what is going on here? He goes, show me what he did to you. So she chokes him, and he's crying. He's very emotional at the same time when she's doing it to him. And he's just sort of standing there taking it, going, oh, this is great. Maybe this is where the attraction really starts. Because then, she's there for a few seconds, like strangling him. And then she's sort of like, and he goes, did you get out of your system? Are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I feel better. Some people show their emotions in that way, in a positive light. I'm not going to judge. I'm not here to judge. We then go to Karen, who is looking after Bullseye. Bullseye wakes up from his wounds. He's been stapled by a White Tiger's aunt. Sorry, names escape me. And he wakes up, and it's just him and Karen. he sort of motions to Karen. He's like, look, I deserve to die. If you want to kill me for Foggy, that's cool. That's just an equation. And he goes into sort of detail that I'm not going into because I've forgotten the quote. But he, you know, they go, but there's a back and forth between her. She goes, you deserve to die. And he's like, yeah, I probably do. If you want to do it, do it. And she gets a gun out, puts it at his head. He's saying no to do it. You know, shoot me, right where that bullseye logo should be on his on his head. And in the nick of time, before she does pull the trigger, which she does, Daredevil's baton knocks the gun out of her hand. She's furious at him because she thinks he deserves to die. Very, very Frank Castle inspired. She and Matt go into it. Say, what are you doing? He deserves to die. Look, he's the only way this ends is if people like him deserve to die. Following on from their conversation earlier, it continues with Matt saying, look, we have to be better. We have to be better than them. This is not the way things are done. We're no better than them if we're going to resort to violence. Because as a result of them staying alive, people we love do die. That's what happens, and that's going to continue to happen as long as they live. So it's a really good scene, I thought, between Deborah and Charlie, you know, to use their actors' names, characters. I know people don't like Karen. I don't mind Karen. I think this is the Karen that people really rail against, where she's really righteous about things and really forthright. But that's the character. I don't mind it. I think this presents Daredevil with a challenge because obviously the woman that he loves, I guess to a certain extent, is turning to the dark side or resorting to violent nature that is inspired to some extent by him. So again, someone he's inspired is going too far, and he's trying to rail her back, but to no extent, because then she sort of storms out. We then go to Fisk, who is in his office looking out at the protesters. Protests are now spilling over. The Powell, the chief task force lead, realizes that the kid task force member who presented their card to Karen and Daredevil in episode 3, I want to say 3 or 4, he realizes through Buck that actually he's to blame. He leaked the card and therefore got Daredevil access to all the cages where he let them, swordsman out and let all the cage members out of their the hole in Red Hook. So he shoots him basically in the head, which prompts the protests to spill over. We have lots of beatings and riots basically going on. One victim as such is White Tiger's auntie, who suffers a baton to the head. And in the midst of that happening, Karen goes to make sure she's okay. Her wig falls off. Powell sees that Karen is there, sort of has the gun to her head, sort of says, it's Karen Page. Meanwhile, Daredevil has gone to Kingpin, who is in his I guess hideout to a certain extent. You know, remember season 1 where he had Vanessa's boyfriend whilst he was away, captured in the cage? Well, that's where he is. He's looking out at the White Rabbit painting, mourning Vanessa, and Daredevil shows up there, and him and Kingpin have a standoff. He sort of says, are you here to give me your condolence? And obviously he's not. Matt then goes into a diatribe saying, like, this won't end. Me and you will not stop. We can't stop. I can't stop. I can't not be Daredevil when things are going wrong, and you can't not be Fisk. So he asks him, leave New York. And obviously Fisk says no. They get into a fight. A really good fight. Anything with Charlie Cox and Kingpin and Vincent D'Onofrio on screen together is probably the best scene in the episode. There's no difference here. They're so good together. I just want to see them interact all the time. I know that's selfish, but they are the keys to the show. Regardless, again, I mentioned sort of critics of the show before in my introduction. Regardless of what people have said, the show does revolve around these two characters, okay? I don't get that criticism where they say, they focus too much on the side characters, which to a certain extent I can see, But the show really does revolve around Daredevil predominantly, and it really does revolve around Kingpin. All of the show revolves around these two characters, so I totally reject that criticism. And this is evidence of that, because this scene was a fight. They do fight. Kingpin has the upper hand for the most part, because he's, you know, emotionally just angry at Daredevil for being partially, if not partially, responsible for Vanessa's death. And so whilst they're fighting, in the end they sort of have, I guess, a standoff whilst we see the final scene, which is Powell having Karen at gunpoint. I would imagine we'll open episode 7 with whatever happens next, because that's where the episode ends, should I say. Anyway, long story short, a really good episode. I'm digging where the show's going. I know I've said some rants in this episode about sort of the criticism that I've seen. Like I said, I'm trying to be objective. I see what people are saying about some of the criticisms of the show, like the way it's shot. They don't like it because it's not like the Netflix show. It isn't, and to a certain extent, when I first saw season 1, that sort of thing was jarring, but I've settled into it. It is more cinematic. It is more, I guess, well shot. Not as, I don't want to say documentary style, but it was shot very gritty in the Netflix show. Very sort of, there was a I think there was some sort of like blue filter over what was being shot in the Netflix show. It is presented a bit more darker, a bit more cinematic in Born Again, and to a certain extent I can see that sort of thing griping with people. It's much more scene to scene rather than sort of following specific characters for a long time, mainly Matt Murdock. But not all the side characters they've introduced, I don't think, are superfluous. I don't think, you know, I could take or leave White Tiger. I've said that in a previous episode. I'm not a massive fan of that character. I think that portrayal was way too, I mean, she's a kid for a start, so kids trying to act tough around literal killers and literal adults is a bit more grating for a show where I'm trying to buy into the premise. Are there too many side characters? To a certain extent, but you need those side characters to sort of push the main ones forward. The main ones being Daredevil, main ones being Kingpin. Those are the two we really, really care about. And those are the people we really, really want to see. So I understand the criticism where there's not enough Matt Murdock in the show. I disagree with that. There's not enough Kingpin in the show. To a certain extent, I agree with that one. But when you do see them, I guess you would say they matter more. I think primarily being the last scene of this episode being one of them, where you see them finally interact. I would like to see those two interact more. But I guess then you would lose the effectiveness of them actually having a showdown, because realistically they wouldn't be in each other's orbit day to day. You do need to see the interaction between Kingpin exercising his political power, dealing with sort of, you know, like I said, him and Vanessa, dealing with controlling Daniel or coercing others into doing his bidding. Like it and actually, to be fair, this is exactly what happened in the Netflix show as well. So again, that criticism isn't mainly directed at Born Again, because they rarely interacted in the Netflix show as well, because why would they? One's a criminal lord and the other's a superhero. It is what it is. Rant's over. I'll try not to rant as much in future, but I just see some of the criticism of the show and I think, I get it, it's not for you, that's fine, but if it's not for you, I mean, on this channel I don't tend to review things that I'm not a big fan of. Some things I am fans of that I have critical thoughts about. Like I said, I'll criticise the show when I think it needs criticising. I'm not a big fan of White Tiger or her auntie. I don't really understand why they're in the show as much. The resist rebel thing I could really do without as well. I understand the story they're telling, it makes sense, but there's way too much sort of rah-rah nature of it all. But other than that, I think the show's good. I like the story they're telling. I like most of the characters that are in the show. I'm really digging the Daniel story this season. I think he's had more to do. The exposure to the dark side of the Fisk regime, and his sort of like, I guess he's trying to wrestle with his morals as well. At the same meantime, he's got Buck on his shoulder, like almost like a guilty conscience, going, well, you know, we look after you. Yeah, I'm liking the show. I look forward to it every week. So there you go. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Please leave a like or subscribe on the channel as well. And I'll speak to you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.